Hi everybody, today we're going to work on lesson 8-10, and that is also going to be solving quadratic equations. Not writing the whole thing out. Equations. We're going to solve them this time by using the quadratic formula. Okay, so we've learned a couple of different ways to solve quadratic equations. Each of those ways has some limitations on it. So what I mean by that is you can solve some equations using factoring, and you can solve some quadratic equations using completing the square. You can solve all equations using a quadratic formula. And actually you can use completing the square also for anything, but it doesn't really work that great if you have decimals and fractions and stuff like that. The quadratic formula will work for any quadratic equation. So let's just take a step back because we're going to have to know the form of the quadratic equation. So in general, the standard form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a is the coefficient of x squared, b is the coefficient of x, and c is the constant that sits at the end. So a is a number, b is a number, c is a number. No x's, no x squareds when you're naming your a, b, and c. Okay, now I'm going to write down the quadratic formula. This is a formula that most people memorize just by using it, and you're going to be pretty surprised when you see it. But it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, and that's all over 2a. Okay, so it's a formula, like an area formula or a volume formula. You're just going to fill in the numbers. So let's get a specific example here. How about 2x squared plus 1x minus 6? 2x squared plus 1x minus 6 equals 0. Okay, so now this is how you get your numbers. A equals 2, B equals 1, C equals negative 6. We're going to substitute those numbers into our equation or formula here. So it's going to be x equals negative b. So it's negative and then the b value, which is 1. Okay, plus or minus the square root of b squared. Well, 1 squared is 1. Minus 4 times a, which is a 2, and then times c, which is going to be negative 6. All right, let me bring this all out here. All over 2 times the value of a, 2 times a, which is a 2. Okay, now you can use your calculator to do this whole entire thing, or you can just do it in bits and pieces. So here's what I mean. I get x equals negative 1 plus or minus the square root of, well, let's see, this is 1 minus 4 times 2, which is 8, times negative 6, which is negative 48. So it's minus a negative, so it's going to be plus. So this actually is going to be 49. If you put the whole thing in your calculator, you'll see you get a 49 over 4. 2 times 2 is 4. Okay, next step. Well, x equals negative 1 plus or minus, what's the square root of 49? It's 7. It's plus or minus 7, which we already have there, all over 4. Okay, what this says is x equals negative 1 plus 7 over 4, or x equals negative 1 minus 7 over 4. I'm going to move this down a little bit. Okay, so negative 1 plus 7 is a 6 over 4. So x equals 6 over 4, which is 1.5. Or x equals negative 1 minus 7, which is a negative 8, over 4, which is x equals negative 2. So your values here that make this equation true are negative 2 and 1.5. Okay, that's the quadratic formula. That seems like a lot of work, but the more you use it, the less intimidating it is. So it's x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay, let's try another one then. Move this down. So let's see, what do I have here? How about x squared plus 2x minus 1 equals 0. First step, name your a, b, and c. A equals, well look, it's a 1. It's not an x, it's not an x squared. B equals 2. C equals negative 1. Okay? Now, the formula again is x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. You can hit pause if I said it too fast. But you see how it is kind of a sing-songy type of thing. I'll show you why it's sing-songy in maybe next lesson. All right, let's fill in our numbers. So negative b would be a negative 2 plus or minus the square root of b squared. Well, b squared is 2 squared. 2 squared is 4 minus 4 times a times c, which is a negative 1, all over 2 times a, 2 times 1. Okay, so now we simplify. Negative 2 plus or minus, we're going to see what's in the square root now. So it's 4 minus 4 times 1, which is 4, times negative 1, which is negative 4. So it's 4 minus a negative 4, which is 4 plus 4. So 4 plus 4, you could put it in your calculator and check it. 4 plus 4 is 8, so we're going to have a square root of 8 under the radical sign, and 2 times 1 is 2. Okay, now, for this one, most likely they're going to say, put your answer in simplest radical form. Well, that means you take the radical here, the square root of 8, and you have to break it down. So 2 times 4, 2 times 2. We have a pair of 2's and we have a single 2. There's a lot of 2's in this problem. So x equals negative 2 plus or minus. Now, the square root of 8 is going to be rewritten as 2 radical 2, and that's all over 2. Okay? All right, now, let me get my pink pen. What's going to happen here is we can reduce each term by 2. And here's what I mean. 2 goes into 2 negative 1 times, so you get a negative 1 there. 2 goes into 2 once, so that's a 1, which you don't have to put. And 2 goes into 2 once. So now we have 1 plus or minus radical 2. Okay? That's actually 2 answers. It's 1 plus radical 2 and 1 minus radical 2. But you can leave it as 1 answer. Okay, let me see how I'm doing on time. I'm running out of time. I'm going to put 2 up for you to try. Okay, here are 2 problems for you to try. You're going to name your A value, your B value, your C value. Remember, they're all numbers, no letters. Substitute into the quadratic formula there and do the best you can to, simplify it as much as you can. All right, hit pause, try these out. Okay, so here are your answers. This was the formula up here. I probably could have written it bigger. check my work, check your work. If there's something you don't understand, I'm online from 11 till 11:30 every day to answer any questions or shoot me an email. Hey, have a good day, everybody.